right, everyone, buckle up, because today we are diving deep into the world of atomic habits.
We're talking James Clear, we're talking tiny changes, remarkable results. I'm pumped, are you?
Oh, you know it. This book, it's like a playbook for self-improvement. And who doesn't love a good playbook?
Right. Clear doesn't just tell you to change, he lays out the how, the science behind it all.
And he walks the walk, right? This isn't just some theory he came up with.
Not at all. The guy was a college athlete, a serious injury, thought his baseball career was over.
Multiple facial fractures, couldn't even drive for months. That's got to be a low point.
But here's where it gets good. He starts small, focusing on what he can control, building from there.
Tiny wins, building momentum, eventually back on the field, even becomes an academic All-American. Talk about resilience.
See, that's the essence of atomic habits, understanding that these small shifts, over time, they create massive change.
So we're not talking overnight transformations here, right?
Yeah.
It's about playing the long game.
It's like compound interest, but for self-improvement, 1% better each day, and suddenly, a year later, you're in a whole new place.
Okay, I'm hooked, but let's get practical. How do we actually make these tiny changes?
That's where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in. This is your framework for understanding how habits work.
Hit me with them. What are the 4 laws?
Cue, craving, response, reward. Think of it like a cycle your brain goes through with every single habit, good or bad.
Okay, so like a bad habit loop we got to break free from.
Exactly, or a good one we're trying to build. And it all starts with that first step, the cue.
All right, so what's a cue in the context of habits? Give me an example.
Say you're trying to cut back on sugar. That bowl of candy on the counter, that's a cue. A certain time of day could be a cue, even a feeling.
So it's like a trigger that sets the whole habit cycle in motion.
Exactly. And this is where Clear's example of those Japanese train conductors really blew my mind.
Oh yeah, what'd they do? I'm intrigued.
They use this system, point and call. They literally point at things and call out commands, even for super routine tasks.
Wait, even though they probably do it 1,000 times a day, every single day?
Every single time, because it's about conscious awareness. Without it, even with these routine things, we're on autopilot, we miss crucial details.
It's like our brain's trying to be efficient, but sometimes that efficiency works against us.
And that's where the habit scorecard from the book comes in handy. It's designed to help you identify those autopilot moments in your own life.
Shine a light on those hidden habits, good and bad. Speaking of hidden habits, I tried that scorecard, and let me tell you, some of the things I discovered were hilarious.
Oh, do tell. I live for these kind of aha moments.
Well, Clear talks about this former lifeguard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he couldn't help but yell, "Walk," at any kid running, even if they were at the park. I swear I do the same thing. I worked in a bakery for a summer, and to this day, I can't walk past a crooked pastry display without straightening it out.
Oh, I love that. It's like these little quirks. They reveal so much about how our brains are wired.
It's like our past lives are still controlling us, one pastry at a time. But it does make you think, if those little things are so ingrained, is it even possible to change?
That's the million-dollar question, right? But that's what we're here to unpack. The good news, we are not powerless. Once you're aware of the cue, you can start to change the game. And Clear has some really clever strategies for doing just that.
So we're talking about hacking our brains, basically. Give me the cheat codes.
Well, Clear talks about this idea of invisible architecture.
Okay, invisible architecture. I like it. Sounds mysterious.
It's this idea that our surroundings are constantly shaping our behavior without us even realizing it.
So it's not just our willpower, it's about setting up our environment for success.
Exactly. Think about it. If you're trying to eat healthy, having a bowl of fruit on the counter is a lot more effective than a hidden stash of cookies.
Oh, tell me about it. Out of sight, out of mind. That's my motto. Although sometimes out of sight doesn't mean I've forgotten about those cookies.
Right, but you're making it easier to choose the healthy option. Those visual cues are powerful.
It's so true. I finally gave in and bought myself a fancy water bottle, the kind with the time markers on the side. And you know what? I actually drink enough water now.
There you go. You've hacked the system. It's like a constant visual reminder right there in front of you.
Yeah, like, don't mind me, just sipping my water, being healthy over here.
But Clear takes it beyond just physical objects, right? He talks about rearranging your workspace, separating work life from home life.
Exactly. He calls it creating a visual trigger. So, did you try that? How'd it go?
Game changer. I used to work from the couch, which, let's be real, is basically asking for procrastination. But once I set up a dedicated workspace, even if it was just a corner of the room, my productivity skyrocketed. It's like you're training your brain, right? This is where I work. This is where I relax.
Yeah, it's like my brain finally got the memo that it's okay to chill out when I'm not in that designated work zone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another layer to all this, right? It's not just our environment. It's also about our identity.
You got it. This is where things get really interesting. We're talking about the stories we tell ourselves, who we believe we are.
Okay, getting deep here. So how does our sense of self play into our habits?
Think about it. If you constantly tell yourself, I'm not a morning person, guess what?
You're going to hit that snooze button.
Exactly. You're reinforcing that belief with your actions. Same goes for things like, I'm always late, or I'm terrible at saying no.
So we're literally making our own reality with these self-imposed labels.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the good news. We can change the script.
Okay, I'm listening. How do we do that?
By consciously choosing to identify with the traits we want to embody. Instead of, I'm disorganized, it's, I'm learning to be more structured.
So it's like those fake it till you make it situations. But instead of faking it, we're creating evidence to support that new identity.
Precisely. Every time you stick to a habit that aligns with that desired identity, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become.
I like that. It's like our actions are proof of concept for our brains. So we've got this clear vision of who we want to be, the habits that align with that vision. How do we actually make those habits stick, especially when motivation starts to dwindle?
You know how sometimes just getting started is the hardest part?
Oh, tell me about it. Some days, even putting on pants feels like a monumental task.
That's where Clear's 2-minute rule comes in. He says, make it ridiculously easy to start.
Ridiculously easy, huh? I can get behind that.
So instead of write a novel, it's write for 2 minutes. Instead of clean the entire house, it's put away 5 things.
So it's about breaking down those intimidating tasks into bite-sized actions.
Exactly. You're lowering the barrier to entry, making it almost impossible to say no.
Because let's be real, we're all about instant gratification these days. The easier it is to start, the more likely we are to actually do it.
Precisely. And once you get started, you build momentum. Clear calls this habit shaping, gradually increasing the difficulty as the habit becomes more ingrained.
So we're easing our way into it, tricking our brains into thinking it's not that hard after all.
You got it. He talks about these decisive moments, those little choices we make throughout the day that set the tone for everything that follows.
Like choosing a salad instead of fries.
Exactly, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Those seemingly insignificant decisions, they add up over time.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly. But even with the best intentions, even with those small steps, sometimes life gets in the way, right? Motivation dips, distractions pop up. So how do we stay the course, especially in the long game?
I was just thinking that. It's like, how do we keep ourselves accountable? Because willpower alone, that's a fickle friend.
You're telling me, but you know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Accountability partners. I knew you were going to say that.
It's a game changer. Clear tells the story about a guy who had a habit contract with his wife and trainer.
A habit contract. What is that, like a legally binding agreement to not skip the gym?
Pretty much. He actually had financial penalties for missing workouts.
Whoa, that's commitment. I admire his dedication, but I think I'll stick to a good old-fashioned accountability buddy.
Right. While that might be a bit extreme for most of us, the underlying principle holds true. Having someone to answer to, even if it's just a friend or family member, can make all the difference.
It's like having a cheerleader in your corner reminding you why you started in the first place.
Exactly. And the flip side of that coin is reflection. Taking the time to track your progress, even if it's just jotting down a few notes in a journal.
So it's not just about external accountability, but also about cultivating that internal awareness of our habits.
Exactly. Tracking your progress not only gives you that visual proof of how far you've come, but it also creates a sense of satisfaction, which further reinforces the behavior.
It's like that feeling of accomplishment when you check something off your to-do list, but for your habits.
Exactly. And as those small wins start to accumulate, you start to see that, hey, this stuff actually works.
It's like, look at me, I'm a habit-building machine. But all this talk about habits, it makes me wonder, are we all equally capable of building any habit? What about our natural talents and those things we're just naturally drawn to?
That's a great question. It's all about finding your zone of genius, as Clear puts it.
Okay, zone of genius. I like the sound of that. So it's about leaning into our strengths, playing to our natural abilities.
Exactly. While genes don't determine our destiny, they do highlight areas of opportunity where habits are more likely to feel satisfying, where success feels less like a struggle and more like, well, you.
It's like that saying, bloom where you're planted. Find what you're naturally good at and rock it. But even when we're in our zone of genius building lasting habits, it takes time and effort, right? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about playing the long game, showing up consistently, even when you don't feel like it.
It's like that quote from Clear. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. So good.
Right, and that's what separates the dreamers from the doers. It's about embracing that journey, accepting that mastery isn't a destination, it's a never-ending pursuit of becoming the best version of ourselves, one good habit at a time.
So true. It's like you got to become a master of consistency, showing up even when that initial excitement wears off, you know?
It's about embracing the process, those little by little improvements we make along the way. You don't wake up one day and bam, you're a master. It just doesn't work like that.
And Atomic Habits drives that home, right? It's about those daily habits, the small stuff we do day in and day out, not some big, grand gesture.
Absolutely. It's about those consistent small actions repeated over and over. That's what ultimately leads to those impressive, remarkable results over time. It's not about being perfect. It's about making small, sustainable changes over time. And those changes really do add up, which is pretty cool when you think about it.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, right? The impact of these tiny changes we could make.
Right, and that's what's so awesome about this whole concept of atomic habits. You don't have to do some crazy overhaul of your life. Just start small, build on those little wins.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of atomic habits, what's that one golden nugget, that one big takeaway you want our listener to walk away with today?
That's a good question. I think I want them to remember this. Mastery is a process. It's not some one-time event. Embrace that journey of getting better every day, one small habit at a time.
Ooh, I love that. It's not about reaching the finish line, because there really isn't one, is there? It's about constantly striving every single day, trying to be just a little bit better than yesterday.
Exactly. You said it better than I could. It's about challenging yourself to keep growing, keep learning, keep improving.
And that starts with taking action, right? Even if it's just a teeny tiny step.
1,000%. You got to start somewhere, so why not today?
All right, everyone listening, here's a challenge for you from us. What's one tiny habit you can start building today, right now? It doesn't have to be huge. What's one small change you can make, one small step you can take that will set you on the path to reach those awesome, huge goals?
That's it. Just one small change, repeated consistently. That's where the magic happens. That's the incredible power of atomic habits.
Until next time, everyone, keep diving deep and keep those atomic habits rolling.
See you then.